Hi guys, thank you so much for joining the Center for Cultural Power and the Cultural Engagement Lab for our Culture Couch series. We are here today with filmmaker and director Cameron Carr. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Harlem Fragments is an autobiographical Afrofuturist sci-fi short about a young Black boy in Harlem struggling to process the impact of the recession and gentrification on his family. In the film, he refuses to leave the house that he grew up in, which his family is losing, in the midst of his parents' divorce, and instead hides away under the stairs, escaping into an animated dream world. This is a part of our Culture and Joy as a Political Strategy series. And yeah, we have a bunch of questions for you, but I was wondering if maybe you could just give a quick intro into Harlem Fragments and what you're doing here in the Vineyard. We are in Oak Bluffs and Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah. What's going on, folks? I'm Cameron Carr, writer, director, producer of Harlem Fragments. This film it's an Afrofuturist drama sci-fi, so kind of a wild ride, but the setting is based off of a Black family in Harlem during the 2008 recession, and essentially follows their beautiful destruction. So we're showing it here at the Martha's Vineyard Afro-American Film Festival, 23rd year of their existence, and it's just been really awesome. It's been a really beautiful week. It's an Oscar qualifying film festival. Have met a lot of great contacts and seen a lot of old folks that I have met in the industry before. So it's really nice to be here.
This is semi-autobiographical or
yeah. It's definitely semi-autobiographical based off of my own family, but I wanted to make it pretty much in a sense that while it starts in that kind of creative nonfiction, universally applicable for families out there, parents, children, just people alike who are going through emotional turmoil and kind of learning how to process emotions that might usually, over generational inherited traumas, be more so swept under the rug. So I wanted, people to understand that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that you can kind of start to really learn how to communicate.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity to see it, which it's incredible. Job well done.
Man, thank you.
And I think the importance of sort of this backdrop here being in Oak Bluffs, right, is sort of this history here on the Vineyard of like resistance for Black people, celebration and joy. But the conversation around it these days is very complex and sort of an economic sort of success and elitism conversation, right?
Sure.
And so this backdrop of having this really beautiful place that has represented so much for us, but also feels exclusive or feels socioeconomically sort of divisive for folks.
Yeah.
I think is really poignant to talk about Harlem Fragments, right? Talking about the recession and your family. And so, can you just tell us why this story is so important beyond what you shared around sort of the conversation?
Yeah.
But just the perspective of gentrification from a child, which I don't feel is often shown or seen.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I love just the way that you're here dissecting it. I think that's exactly what I wanted to tell the story, because there's so many different layers. I think, for one, we don't see Black families on screen often, especially in settings where they're, trying to punch upward and, build for the first time in their lives into generational wealth, right? And so I really wanted to capture that moment in, we have such this period of kind of this, in the 2000s, there's a big like kind of Black Renaissance era of achieving, like the Black enterprise, if you will, the era of Black folks trying to really excel. And so I wanted to focus on, the story of a New York family, trying to exist in prominent Harlem, bought a brownstone on their own, fixed it up. It's a fixer-upper, that they went through all of that. But then what happens, when the only love language this Black male boomer has known of providing, gets taken from him. And so as a result, this separation begins. And then also as a result of that, it's just a domino catalysm of, you've got white gentrifiers coming in and swooping up this incredible piece of property for a steal, essentially, and pushing out, as a result, these Black community members, they unfortunately get bought out because of survival. And so for me, it really just replicates everything going on, in the housing crisis that's going on across New York, across different communities. So I wanted to focus on that. And then also just to your point about, a 10-year-old witnessing this, what happens to this 10-year-old psyche. I think it's a real, it's something I think that we don't often discuss about the way that these young kids come of age, I think, and become wise, way beyond their years just because of what they've been through. And so I wanted to kind of flip that for once, not in a mode of that we see constantly in Hollywood with Black depictions of trauma, but in some way that, has an optimistic kind of evolution from it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love and feels so just important is the Afrofuturist element of it, right? But it still sort of ties back and has this historical sort of element to it. I won't give away the entire film, but there is a line where the boomer character talks about writing the family who owned the home, right? And so this idea of like, when you think about selling, please sell to a Harlemite, someone in the area. Yeah. So this legacy of Black home ownership, right? And then what does this look like in the future? So that Afrofuturist lens beyond, like, placed upon this like historic backdrop, I just think is so beautiful.
Thank you.
But I think, just wanting to understand more sort of as you told that story, if you could share like what was coming up for you in that sort of like the very real tension, because gentrification in Harlem is still happening. Yeah. Right. And absolutely. to live through it. Yeah. And then to see it, even though it never stopped, but see the surge of it again. We're in a recession. Yeah. Again. Yeah. So just sort of like what comes up for you in this moment as you create and tell this story, realizing that it's still very powerful and present. Yeah.
Appreciate the question and the acknowledgement. My family, we grew up in a brownstone that my parents, went and got. And when they lost it, it was really like, we moved in with my dad into a single bedroom apartment. And, we just were trying to figure it out. And that was all of our high school right there. But the crazy part about the film is that, I was trying to really think about how to emulate, the beauty and structure of a brownstone, because I think it's a historical, landmark within, New York staples. Obviously, it's prominent in other different cities that we've seen in different kind of architect styles. But I really wanted to give an ode to these brownstones, and again, this Black culture and legacy, and especially within the Harlem Renaissance. And so I wanted to kind of make it its own structure and character in the film. And it's my mission to kind of put Harlem on the map the same way Spike did for Brooklyn. Yes. But also, give that kind of vulnerability of these New York City feels. So I was looking at locations, and I live around Harlem currently, and so I was just trying to find a brownstone that really emulated my old home. And then I was like, why don't I just try knocking on the door of where my parents, where I grew up. And, I thought they were going to slam the door in my face, but I told them my story, told them what I'm trying to do, told them I'm verified as a filmmaker. And they really, listened to like my pitch, and really were just like, look, whatever you need, let's do it. And so we shot actually in the home that I grew up in, that my parents lost in their divorce. So it was really, meta-cathartic. But what it means to me is like, it's really, that's like, full circle of showcasing, the then and now of this stuff is still going on constantly in many different communities, and also on a larger scale of full-blown, building complexes, and so it's literally this erasure of Black community in existence. So to me, that's really important to have as an undercurrent of the storm of, on top of having Afrofuturist vibes. I think it's always important to, like you said, look back on the actual existing history of the landmark.
As an aside, did you ever think you'd see so many luxury buildings in Harlem?
It's really crazy. Like growing up there, I've seen constant like places that were gas stations and garages flip into straight up luxury apartment complexes. And just between that and Columbia's the biggest realtor in New York City. They own the most property. So between those, it's like you've got dueling towers that are constantly popping up and blocking out views of Riverside Church and such. So it's very crazy, and it's happening very quickly.
Very, very quickly. Let's talk about organizing, because the work that we do at Cultural Power, right, is really important to connect artists to social movements.
Sure.
And we don't say that in a paternalistic way, right? We know that a lot of artists do work in the social justice sphere, but there are many artists and even social justice leaders and movement workers who are like, we don't know how to connect to the culture side. And that's sort of the work that we do, being that bridge. And so as we're talking about all the things that we're seeing, housing injustice, economic injustice, to your point around how there was a Black Renaissance, really seeing that sort of being pulled away from us, anti-DEI, all these things. Are there any organizing efforts or leaders that you feel particularly close to, or that you can think of, or just movements that you feel really feel deeply connected to in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of organizing, like, I just love like people who are about the brass tacks. So like folks who are sort of like raising funds for communities. So, you know, I feel like it's near and far in between. And, you know, we see a lot of this stuff go into, you know, the political organizing, but I think really the organizations that are specifically raising like grants for and, you know, funds and stipends for these families that are, you know, constantly like going through lottery picks, whether it's, you know, for housing or for schools. I think the folks who really kind of give like the actual like money, I think are the people who I always pay attention to. You know, so you don't see it often, but I think, you know, whenever those organizations do pop up with actual, you know, action plans for like stipends for people, I think that's the most effective. So
I got a question for you. Yeah. What are your thoughts around Zohran Mamdani?
Yeah, well, he's the new wave. He's the new movement. I think it's always great, you know, when people kind of get someone to rally around. I think like we were overdue for change in New York. Obviously, you know, I couldn't, you know, get started on how much I've been traumatized by, you know, the Giulianis, the Bloombergs, the Adams. You know, like, you know, I had a shorty.
Yes, what up? I'm outside.
I used to hop the train.
I'm outside.
But it's like now you arrest and you know, ruin people's lives for hopping the train. And, you know, it's a really, you know, fascinating is not the right word, but like, you know, I went to my train the other day when I got back from a trip, and the turnstiles got like saw teeth on it, and I'm like, what's happening? But like, you know, I think like again, it's like it's important for you know, folks like Zohran to really hop in at these moments because no one else is, and he really resonates with a lot of folks. You know, and obviously in the more younger generations, but I think also. Folks like to listen in, even from different generations, to see what this new kid on the block is talking about. And so I think the momentum that he carries, hopefully, can push us forward. I think, you know, it gets tricky when multiple people are running and the vote splits and here we go again.
The rules.
Yeah, you know, but I think like in the same vein, obviously, like, you know, not here to compare or relate folks, but like the same way people got really, you know, jazzed about AOC, you know, in many different ways, you know, I think, you know, Zohran is out here, again, not to compare or relate them in any way, but like in terms of the folks, you know, it's like people went crazy for Bernie, you know, so hopefully, you know, I think that he can help, you know, make some actual change, because I think we're just overdue for change. And I think that's what's most important is like whoever can get up in there and just start like kind of really messing stuff up and disrupting some things, I think will actually help us, you know, get to where we want to be. I think like just on that, you know, speaking of all these different housing crises, you know, like these crises, you know, I think our rent freeze is important. And so like it's, you know, New York is like, it's unlivable right now. So I think that's a great start. I think like ultimately we're going to need some real, again, this gets into realtors and you know, them constantly inflating prices. But I think they're going to need a mandate to, it's hiking every like year in certain ways. So I think that if someone can get to the root of that issue and actually, you know, drive that down, you know, maybe that's going to help save us. So we'll see.
A one bedroom is like $3,000.
It's insane.
In Harlem.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's very wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to your point around sort of this I don't want to say the old guard, but essentially, right?
Sure.
Like, what I do think, I have a very strong belief around, I don't think any elected official is going to save us, of course. However, I do think when people bring in new ideologies, or not even new, but a new understanding and a learning, it can help people see.
Absolutely.
And we actually did a video around the cultural strategy that Zoran used, or has used in his campaign, right? To really connect people to New York City.
Oh, yeah.
And so in cultural strategy, of course, Harlem Fragments, right? Like there's such a, even if that wasn't your intention, it's so strategic to have this film in this space right now that allows people to also like envision, right, Afrofuturism, but also really see what happened, like what, and you know, I saw that you dedicated it to your family, right? So it's like,
I did, yeah.
People lived here. This was a family.
In memorandum.
Yes, right. But we need that, right? Because like sometimes the conversation on gentrification just becomes very blanket.
Yeah.
Very.
Totally.
This area got gentrified and now there are white people here, but there were people here. There were homes here. There was a child here.
Yeah.
And just going a little deeper, as we talked about sort of what's happening politically and just the world, you know, we have this big, beautiful bill that is like slashing Medicaid and really and of course, you know, what do they say when white people get a cough, we get pneumonia or something like that? Like we get right? So we know that the health services and all the things that are, the very limited services and access that we did have is going to become even more restricted.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think about mental health services, right? Because New York City is definitely impacted by a lot of people who are experiencing mental health crises. And I think about your film and, you know, talking about sort of what's happening, right? This, even if it's not explicit, which I actually think it is, what will happen to this young boy? We don't know, right? I mean, you told me it's autobiographical, so we can see a little bit, but just like so many things can happen when you're introduced to such a traumatic experience at such an early age, and you're just looking for some sort of normalcy. And when you rip that away from people, you shift their whole brain, you know? And so I'm thinking about just the backdrop of like mental health in your film. And do you have any thoughts around, you know, just this beautiful bill and what we're going to see? We've already talked about Harlem, but
no, I mean, you know, it's real. Like this stuff is all reality, you know, and you know, across the healthcare crisis, you know, it's whether you're out of a job and can't, you know, simply go to the dentist or get a checkup, which again is already, you know, typical within Black communities and you know, just other communities of color, you know, I think. And then, you know, you've got the mental health side where it's like, you know, it's a really, you know, kind of sad state of affairs, especially when you know, look at other countries and the resources that they can get, you know, free healthcare, universal healthcare is such a crystallized, fossilized thing in America. So this is why I use in these art forms as methods and vehicles of kind of spotlighting these kinds of examinations of mental health and for us, you know, for me specifically, Black mental health. You know, I really wanted to spotlight, you know, not only you know, like I was talking about, you know, the state of Black boomers' psyches, you know, and kind of even the dance I was explaining to somebody the other day at the festival, you know, kind of this what this marriage means to both of the parents and kind of the sacrifice on both ends of, you know, what it meant to be a housewife, you know, and you know what you know that wife gave up in her life and her career
to allow her husband to provide and be
you know, and what providing means to this Black male boomer, you know, who again, you know, is not the best communicator, and so it's again, you know, what happens to this Black man when he's stripped of his only agency in this, you know, white corporate world. And then I really wanted to focus on these kids, you know, who are handling it in different ways. You know, the protagonist TJ goes into his fantasy world, but what happens when his, you know, fantasy world is invaded by his reality? You know, it really harshly comes to an abrupt coming of age moment, and then his sister, who's more, you know, grounded in the moment and trying to, you know, guide her younger sibling through this.
Like, let's go.
Like we're here now. You know, this is real.
Pull it together.
You know. So I really wanted to make sure I had all of those in the equation. But you know, it's when when I'm, an independent filmmaker, non-repped, no healthcare. It's like these are the elements. I haven't been able to go to my therapist that I used to have when I worked in agency life. But to have those elements really be showcased is vital for me and vital for folks who are out there who are absorbing art. Who might not necessarily have resources out there, and also might not necessarily be in therapy, but can have a cathartic therapeutic experience by doing this film.
Yeah, you just brought up I'm like, we're gonna have to do a whole other interview another time, because now I'm like the creative economy, because like creatives and artists need health insurance, like.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we could do a whole series, but every day I'm like, submitting to grants and such, just so they're literally just living stipends, so.
Just, and then to hopefully allow for creation as well in the living, right?
Exactly, you got it.
So, a few years ago, the hashtag Black Boy Joy was everywhere, right? Black Girl Magic, Black Boy Joy.
Oh yeah.
We were living in it, and I still live in it, but, and we don't see it as much anymore, but we know some of us are still carrying it forward. We hashtag things Black excellence, which I have thought, we're trying to hold on to the things that positive affirmation for ourselves by any means necessary. But I guess, what does Black Boy Joy mean to you?
Man, Black Boy Joy. Black Boy Joy got me through some times, I think like for me, it's like, what I like to say, I think just like how you put it, what did you say? What by any means necessary?
Affirmation.
Positive affirmation. Yeah, affirmations. For me, it's like my compass. It's like my engine. It's my furnace. And so for me, my Black Boy Joy is kind of like, if it were to have it be custom catered to me, is I'm always saying, don't let anybody diminish or shrink your glow. And so that was a big truth that I had to learn as I was navigating, corporate America, and because people will try to shrink you and step over you and step on you and get by you. And also, like, they don't like when you're doing well. They don't like when you're glowing and standing out, which we already do, so naturally, and
that
so,
melanin.
And so when they see you like thriving and like, grinning and, getting promoted,
you're
and
happy.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Too much.
And unfortunately, it's a combination of folks who are just, pretty irrational, but also folks who have clearly had something happen to them that they want to, try and chop you down to their size and to where they are mentally. And so for me, I'm always, really about, what Black Boy Joy means to me is literally, making sure you are constantly glowing, or making sure no one is ever trying to dim you, so I rarely see folks, posting about all of these folks, and all the nameless folks as well, who have been, constantly murdered by police injustices and civilian injustices.
Right.
And I think just another example is, whenever I run these days, I'm still running with Ahmad, because that was like, he was my age, and I run, and you constantly are in these situations where you're, you have folks creeping up on you. So for me, it's like I have to have Black Boy Joy because there are so many folks out there who are literally not alive and can't anymore.
So. And every day, something structurally is trying to take you out.
Every day.
But the melanin can't be denied, right?
No,
you come over here glowing, and it's evident. And I hear you in the sort of like, people never want you to be beyond where they are or with the pocket that they have for you. And so I definitely hear that. So Black Boy Joy is just it's the resistance. It's the resistance.
There it is. And Black Girl Magic.
Yes, always, right? You know how we gonna give it up.
Oh yeah.
So I love that. What's next for the film?
The mission is to put this, into a feature film. And so I think we've been at over about 115 film festivals. It's been really crazy. We've won about 7 grand jury awards.
Amazing.
We were NAACP Image Award shortlisted. So just trying to really put on the map and get into find folks who are interested in helping develop it into that feature film, because it really could be if you mix like Last Black Man in San Francisco with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, that's kind of like, and like maybe like some Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah.
I think the world always needs that, because I could watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, you know, I do watch it like once a month. So, you know, I think that's the mission, and we just haven't seen it on the screen. We have so few examples, you know, of films that are succeeding, right? It's like we have to jump from Moonlight to like, you know, like now, you know, it's Sinners, before it was Black Panther. But there's so few, and there are so many beautiful stories out there that need to be told. So, I'm really on a mission to get this into feature film development. I'm going through a lot of grants right now, and, you know, applications. We'll see what happens, but hopefully, you know, the goal is to get that out there and get representation as an underrepresented Black filmmaker.
We gotta talk about this creative economy. Oh my God.
Man.
Oh man, that's it. Well, I just can't imagine. It's so good, y'all. Like, it's so good, and I can't imagine your ambitions not becoming real. Like, it's
I'm taking
so
that.
good.
Like, you know.
I'm actually, many would say I'm a prophet.
Oh yeah, listen.
No one has said that.
You're the oracle, you know.
I'm gonna take that.
Yeah.
So, lastly, this Culture Couch series, as I said before, is a new thing that we're actually doing.
Yeah.
You know, talk about culture and joy as a political strategy, right? Like, narrative shift. Like, our work is really not just cultural strategy, but narrative strategy. We're often, I think you just said it, sort of like, we're sort of put in these boxes, and our stories are often have to be in this very sad doom gloom. And I do think it is important to tell our history, but how do we incorporate joy? How do we help people see that as long as we maintain our joy as much as we can, not trying to dismiss the fact that people are actively trying to take it from us, but how do we continue to put our joy forward, our cultural practices, the things that make us who we are, that glow, that melanin, that joy, that magic, as a strategy to actually shift, to educate us, to rally us, and to actually then, you know, see what we want to see, whether it's moving elected officials or, you know, some other strategy that probably won't get talked about here. But so this is a part of that overall arching theme for us, but also a part of our Joy series campaign. So we have two campaigns. We have Autonomy is My Joy, and we also have Rooted in Joy. And so I wanted to ask you, one, what does autonomy mean to you? And then two, what does rooted mean to you?
Ooh, man, okay.
I know, I'm proud of those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just first want to say, I love that you guys are doing this, and it's so important. It's so vital to these communities, and also just to, the political landscape. So thank you for creating a spotlight and remembering to celebrate joy, right? I think I can't even remember the last time somebody asked me what Black boy joy means to me, if ever. It's like we've had to constantly remind ourselves. So thank you guys for doing what you do. What autonomy means to me, I think, I think it's like objective agency. I think it's transparency. It's leaning into that authenticity. And I think that we don't see it often these days, especially in the U.S. in today's day. But I think, I think objective agency is absolutely, for me, at the root. Now let's get to the root.
I see what you did there.
You like that, storytelling. Rooted, it means a lot of things. I love kind of like visual examples. So I think of like, the ancestral realm in Black Panther. There's a, I think like a lot of folks these days can be very complacent, and if you're not grounded, you often can't really maneuver and operate properly, and you're going to be in your head, you're going to be anxious, you're just not going to be solid and standing on business, and so for me, rooted means like being able to tap into your community, being able to tap into yourself, watering yourself. I think it's just integral to be in community with not only like those who are close to you, who you have chosen as your family, your close to trusted camp, your collaborators. I think that's what it means to me. I'm just fresh off of watching Stanley Nelson's Place of Our Own documentary at the festival, and what I loved so much about it was that while he examines, this this Black existence and Black joy, he also was not afraid to talk about, the complexities at play, such as, the color theories, the color conflicts, the inner Black community, and the status, and that are still so prominent, right? Both on screen in Hollywood and just in our society circles. And so I loved that. That's exactly the kind of, like I was saying earlier, this kind of vulnerability with intention. And he highlighted his relationship with his father, and all of these different chapters. And I think having that vulnerability with intention as you're showcasing exactly like you were talking about, while still celebrating our culture, that I think goes into authenticity, which goes into autonomy. And I think that is, the best method of being able to communicate our Black beauty,
Okay. I grew up in a Black church, and this would be the point my mother would be like, come on now. Let's so, okay.
Come on. I'm trying out here,
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I have to say, when I think about autonomy and rooted just in the space of having watched Harlem Fragments, right? Like displacement, where someone essentially displaced your family, right? Structurally, your family was displaced. But you still being rooted in who you are, growing up in Harlem, being who you are, using your autonomy to create this story about and this beautiful imagery of what it was, but then putting that Afrofuturist lens on it, right? So like, you let us know there's Black people in the future. There's still so much for us, and I just think I'm so grateful. Like, I really, I thought it was beautiful. It could be that I'm also like in love with Harlem. So, but I thought it was so beautiful, and I'm just grateful to you for being with us. We have filmmaker and director Cameron Carr here with us, creator of Harlem Fragments, and we're just so grateful. Thank you for participating in the Culture Couch.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out the rest of our Vineyard Culture Couch series, Culture and Joy as Political Strategy. Have a good one.